YouTube, welcome back to the BladesIIB shop and another project video. Should be a fairly quick one tonight. We're going to go through, and this should also be the last one in my Pierson Pro Pallet series, as I've been working on making some pallets and transitioning my knife making over from one at a time in a vise into making these things in a pallet. In the last video, we finished up some pallets and we went ahead and put them into operation, and we made these handle slabs. So I machined the bottom side of these, flipped it over, machined the top side of these. So we got both of those operations done. And for this last operation, I need to be able to machine the outside contours and profile on this. So I want to be able to bolt this onto a plate so that I can hold it securely from within the middle and then machine all around it, all around the outside, and finish this off. So in order to do that, I'm going to use this same knife hardware that I use to assemble the knives. So it's these really small little pieces of hardware. Hopefully those will come into focus there and you can see those, but these little bushings, these little threaded barrels, and I didn't really want to put those through an 1.5 inch plate that these pallets are. Rather than trying to counterbore and drill and put all that through the 1.5 inch, I made up one pallet and I've got this 1/2 inch topper plate that I'm going to put on there. So it's got dowel pins that align it. It's got some bolts that hold it up in the corners. What we're going to do is we're going to go through, and I've got the bolt pattern for those knife slabs laid out, and all we're going to do is just punch some holes in here. We're going to flip this over on the pallet, counterbore those from the back, and then I should be able to bolt 4 of those handle slabs onto here and go ahead and run that cycle and get these machined. I only went with 4. I could have fit more than that on the pallet, but it takes a long time to finish all the contours around there. So 4 is a long enough cycle time. And that's still going to save me time, give me plenty of time, a couple hours around the shop to work around to do things while it's running all those contours. So that's it. This operation for this is going to be a lot quicker than that. We're looking at about 4.5 minutes to drill the holes in the top side of this, flip it over. We're looking at a minute or less to do the counterbores in the back side of this. So this whole pallet, the rest of it's already ready to go. So it's only going to take us about 5 minutes to make this pallet. And then we'll test fit, get our pieces bolted on here, and we'll start machining, and we'll go ahead and run that pallet and run it through one cycle, get those contours done, and finish those off. Before we get into this, we'll take a quick look at the design in Fusion and make sure you understand exactly what I'm talking about for the holes on here. But again, pretty quick operation, and we'll finish this topper plate, and then we'll go back on Fusion, take a look at exactly what we're doing with the handle slabs, and come down here and make some chips. For those of you hitting the channel for the first time, I sure appreciate that you found the BladesIIB channel. I encourage you to get out there and look at some of the other videos on machining, welding, knife making, a little bit on Fusion 360, just everything else going on here in the BladesIIB shop. And if you like what you see, encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Would love it if you support the channel. And if you like this video, hit the like button, drop a comment in there. Would love to hear from you. For those of you who already subscribed to the channel, hey, I sure appreciate you coming back and watching these videos. I hope you enjoy this one as we wrap up the pallet making and the pallet design series, and then we'll find some good fun stuff to get to and keep the videos coming after that. All right, let's go ahead, hit the computer. Let's take a quick look in Fusion at exactly what we're going to machine here. We'll come down, we'll get the Tormach fired up, and we'll get this thing produced, get it ready to go. All right, let's go.
All right, so here's a quick look at what we're going to go make down on the Tormach today for this pallet. Pretty simple pallet. If you watched my other video, it already has the counter bores in it. It already has these holes that are going to line it up on some 1/4 inch dowel pins. All of that part of the pallet is already complete. All we have to do is go in here and put in these holes where we're going to bolt down the handle slabs to, and we'll get that done. So drill and ream, that's what that's going to look like. We're just going to go in there and drill those holes, pop them in there with the center drill first, drill them, ream those. We're going to go through and bore those other holes and then drop a reamer through those as well. So that's the plan. After that, you can see where the handle slabs are actually going to fit on here. So we'll get those in place. These other 2 holes I added after, so you'll see where those are going to fit into the design here in a little bit. But then we're going to go through and we will do the contours. So we'll go around and we'll do a little adaptive roughing around the outer edge. We'll go through and do a little bit more on the contours, a little bit more on the contours. Then we're going to clean up the profile, and then we will do this final, very fine finish cut around all of the contours. I did a pattern on there, so I did all that across this 2 designs and then patterned that down. Unlike for the drill and ream where I actually just did both of them, but didn't do a pattern, I just did all of it on there in one place. So again, pretty simple pallet. That's the plan. Let's go down there and see how this goes, knocking it out.
All right, well, now that we've seen what we're making, here's that actual Pierson Pro Pallet. So this is the 1.5 inch thick piece. You can see I didn't want to be trying to counter bore and bolt those little tiny pins right through this. So that's why I went with this top plate design. And I made multiples of these top plates so I can use multiple different fixtures and holding. So it lines up on those dowel pins. So I've got 6 of them on there. It's pretty good alignment. All right, we've got that down on there. And we've just got some stainless bolts here to get those locked in place.
All right, I actually had to spin my pallet around here one time. I forgot that I had marked these in the corner. Make sure I get them oriented the right way. First one of these that I am finally finishing, so make sure I get it on there the right way, get it bolted in place, and we'll be ready to move on and start our program. All right, we've got our file loaded up in here. We can see a preview of what we're gonna put on here for some holes. You can sort of see the other ones coming across there for the bolt holes. So we get enough for 2 sets or 4 pieces altogether. I use the same single point of origin on here. So G59.3 is my work position for that pallet system. And you can see that I've got this set up for G59.3 on that file for the program. It's only a few tools on this one. You saw that we got it all bolted in there. Like I say, it's only going to take about 4.5, 5 minutes to run this, so it should be a pretty quick cycle. All right, well, I hadn't done that before. I actually did not keep track of my tools properly when I was loading up the automatic tool changer. And I had 41 in there, and then I put in one of my drill bits and I took out tool number 41. Didn't realize that I took out a tool that I needed. So it actually just stopped the program and it's manually asking me to insert that. So I just put in the tool, it's gonna run. I turned on the M01 cycle brake so that when it goes to change the tool after that, I'm sure that since it has no place to store it, it's gonna ask me to remove it before it continues, but I went ahead and turned on that cycle brake anyway. So first time I've done that, just thought I'd drop that in the video, and it's kind of interesting. It just prompts you for a manual tool change if it doesn't have the one it needs in the ATC.
Well, clearly that was a crash. So I do not have a depth set properly somewhere. Shoot, man. Hate it when that happens.
Well, I did a reset, made sure that I zeroed the Z-axis first to get that to go straight up. Looked like everything cleared fine, and then of course get in there and take a look at that war wound that I just created on there.
All right, well, there's going to be a nice little reminder for me to look at for a long time on what I did there. So looking at it, the depth of cut, I'm going to go up and check in Fusion real quick, but I think I'm going down about 460, 470 maybe deep. I knew I didn't want to go through the plate, so I think I'm going about 460 deep, and that length of cut on that cutter is in the machine for only 0.375, so I probably had a collision when I ran the simulation and I just didn't catch it. So it's only 3/8. It's actually sticking out of the tool holder about 430, and I think I was going for, like I say, about 460, so I've got them all stubbed up for doing titanium. So it didn't even break the cutter, it just ran the tool holder right into the top plate since it's just not sticking out far enough. Length of cut issue. First time I've done that one too. I think that's my first real serious crash on this Tormach. I've had another one where I got a tap stuck. I had a little bit of a bump somewhere along the way, but that's a pretty good crash right there. So, and totally my fault. Let me pop that plate off, or pop the pallet off. Let me put my probe in and let me just check and make sure I didn't knock anything out of alignment as the machine reset. And you know, I'm just going to end up using that pallet because it'll still work. Plates will still sit on top of there while I do my contours. There'll be plenty of surface area to keep it lined up, and I'll keep that as a nice little reminder of check and double check these things. They're pretty unforgiving when you make a mistake.
All right, so after a crash, first thing, go through and make sure you reset your machine. I start with resetting my tool height and then reset my probe on there before I actually go probe anything. While I had it over there, I just went ahead and reset that tool height. Checked my height here, really happy with it. Was only off by about 4/10. And then I went through and I checked the setup on the rest of the Pierson Pro Pallet system and was maybe again off by a couple of tenths on that pin. Moved it down to the other one. It was still perfectly square. It was all aligned. So all that checked out fine. Ready to move on.
All right, well, I got in there with some emery cloth and a file, cleaned that off so that it's flat, so when I flip it over, it'll sit flat. Again, it'll still work for what I need it for. Didn't waste a pallet, and pretty surprised. The machine was only off by 8/10 in Z, and it was off maybe about 4/10 on the X-axis. Same thing on Y, so, you know, I think that's almost within the half thou of the machine's repeatability, so don't really think anything moved. It was still nice and square on there, but I went ahead, reset everything, reset the tool height. I've got tool number 41 sticking out about an extra 200 thou, so we should be able to go in there and finish boring these holes and finish this project. So much for a 4.5 minute cycle time, but good learning as always. All right, let's go ahead and hit run and knock out the top side of this and flip it over. All right, boy, when you're off, you're off. So first a crash because the tool's not sticking out far enough. I pulled the tool out farther, but the length of cut on this tool is still only 3/8 of an inch, and I'm trying to go 450 thou deep with it. After it rough bored that hole and it tried to go in there for the finish cut, it wasn't cutting it all the way at the top. So I counterbored it. We're gonna punch a reamer in there. It's aluminum. It's gonna get away with it, clean it up. But man, I missed a tool on the ATC. I missed a depth, crashed, and now I didn't have a good program. So yeah, I think I didn't take programming this jig plate very seriously. And oh man, just so much learning on this. That's the time you get dangerous. You've been running it for a while and you think you almost know what you're doing, and that's when you're gonna make some serious mistakes. So I think I just learned to slow back down and do some better double checking. All right, let's get this reamer in here. Let's finish reaming these last 4 holes and get this flipped over and counterboard. Call it a day. All right, and just to confirm what happens, I had that MO1 cycle brake on, so it stopped. I removed the tool, so I had already removed 41. I hit go, and after I hit cycle start, then it tried to go again, and now it's telling me to remove tool 41. I tried to set that to 0, but it was in the middle of a program, so it would not let me change that to 0. So I've now removed it, and now it's telling me to hit cycle start. So again, manual tool change in the middle of your operation just runs pretty smooth. First time I've had to deal with that. All right, so there it is. Top side is complete with war wound and all. So I've got these holes. I just use the hand reamer, ream the top of those, make sure there's no burr. We'll flip this over, it'll sit flat. I was just pulling the bolts out while I was waiting for the compressor to stop. So again, that should have been a really, really simple op, just drilling a couple holes, reaming them in there, and we made that more complicated than it needs to be. Let's get this flipped over. Let's counterbore some holes in there and call it a wrap. All right, we're gonna get ready to do this backside. So this time I need tools 45, 46, and 50. Let's go double check that we have all of those. So I have 45, 46, and 50. All right, I have all 3 tools that I need. I'm still on 59.3. I do in fact have the counterbore, the bottom side of the contour plate. I've got my new file, and 45, 46, 50. We should be good. Only 3 ops. These tools should all be sticking out far enough. Plates bolted on there the other way up. I've checked the tool path and we should have plenty of clearance over top of these bolts, even though they stick up further. Since there's no counterbore on this side, I think we're good. Let's hope for a smooth op. Once again, when you're off, you are off. I'm good on my 4 3/16 holes here in the middle. I seem to have plenty of depth, plenty of clearance. I did not break through on these 1/8 holes. So I didn't come through far enough from the other side. I'm right on this side. I'm counterbored in there
66 thou. That's enough to get the 50 thou screw head down underneath. So I either set the depth wrong on the two of these, and I used the shallower depth for the holes that needed to be deeper, and I used the deeper depth for the holes that could have been shallower, or I've got something else going on. So let me flip it over. Let's see how deep I am actually in there on the other side, and then we'll have to go and adjust the program, and we're going to have to rerun it on the top side and get those holes the rest of the way in there. All right, let's flip it over and see what's going on. All right, well, I measured as best I could by putting this rod in there and measuring that with the caliper. I think I'm about 350 deep, and I'm only 66 deep from the other side. So that's about 410, 420 total, and I need to get to 485. So I am pretty sure that 350 is how deep I want it to go on these 4 holes, because I'm coming 200 thou deep on the other side to counterbore. And these holes I want it to go within about 5 thou. I wanted to go 480 deep, and these holes I was pretty much touching on the backside. There was just a thin little bit of material left. I could see it pushed up a little bit, so I clearly went deep on these ones instead of these ones. Let me go up, fix the program. Let's come back and rerun the top side of these holes, and then, my goodness, let's wrap up this 4.5 minute project after nearly an hour. All right, so the problem wasn't exactly what I thought. I went up and looked in Fusion, and I had actually set the depth to the whole bottom and then backed off 10 thou to make sure I didn't punch through. But because there was a counterbore on the backside, the whole bottom was to the top of the counterbore. So I backed off 10 thou, backed off 15 thou for the reamer. So we went ahead, reset that, came down, re-drilled, reamed those holes, and we're good. All right, well, after that less than stellar performance, I'm ready to call it a day. So we're just going to do a quick test fit. We're going to make sure that after all of those failed attempts and retries on this, we're going to just verify that it does, in fact, line up and hold our plates on there. And then we'll call it a day, and we'll come back and actually machine this pallet tomorrow. Or at least I'm going to call it a day. I think I've had enough for today. The fit on those is still not bad, even though I reamed them twice. And let's see, I need one of these to fit over there. I'll go with the set that I've already flattened off, deburred the bottom. There's the one I need. All right, well, at least I got that part right. There we go. That tightens down. That one still fits in that hole. And I know it covers up that hole a little bit, so I do know that I'm going to need to get in there with a grinder real quick, and I'm just going to need to knock the corner off of a couple of these. Just wasn't avoidable, even if I get in here for these other ones. Let's see. All right, that one's going to fit over there. And this one is also going to fit over here, and just touching this spot over here too, but that's all right. I'm just gonna nick the corner off of that. I wanted to make sure there was a little bit of clearance between them. I guess I could have had them just about nearly touching, but it's gonna take just a second to knock the tips off of these, and yeah, we'll be in good shape. All right, well, I took a day, I rested, I reconsidered all the mistakes I made on this plate, come back here looking at this war wound, and you know, I thought all the errors were over and we're going to be ready to get on here and make some contours. I go to put these plates on here today, and lo and behold, I have 2 holes over here. These 2 holes right here that are off by pretty much a full hole. The other 3 sets are all great, and I know we tested that one before. Those ones are off by just a lot. I am so baffled. I went up in Fusion, I looked, no idea what I did to get those things so far off. I don't drink in Fusion. I don't normally drink in Fusion. I wish I had a better explanation of what could have possibly happened. But anyway, I've gone up there. If I need to remake the whole plate, I will, but it looks like they're off by pretty much a full hole. So I think I'm going to have enough material around there that it's going to hold well enough and it's not going to weaken over time. But we'll see. Let's go ahead, and I'm just going to put in those 2 holes right now. If it looks like it's going to work and it's got enough material, then we'll go with it. If we need to remake this whole plate, I went ahead and tweaked the program and
adjusted how we bore these holes, and I did all of that. So if I need to remake the whole thing, we can definitely go and do that as well. But I do think it's gonna work. Let's get this back in there. I've got the program uploaded. Tools are already in there. We're just gonna drill, ream those 2 holes, flip it over, counter bore those 2 holes, and let's see if we can't get to the next step in this evolution here. All right, let's go. Well, that is far enough over there that we've got enough surface area contact. Should get no problem with alignment on those pins, so I don't think there's any point in redoing it and sacrificing the whole plate. Now I get, a crash war wound and another misprogrammed war wound that I get to look at every time I look at this pallet. Sure, that'll just keep me humble. All right, let's flip this over. Let's knock out the other side and move on to our next step. All right, we got our extra holes counterbored in there on the back side. Gave that just a quick rub down. Make sure there's no burrs sticking up on any of those holes. When we flip it over, it'll go down flat. Let's get our pieces bolted on there, and let's run this, what should be the long cycle. This should have been 5 minutes so far into this video, and I'm hours into it, and we haven't even got to the part that's gonna run for 5.5 hours to finish contours. Let's get to that part now. All right, well now we'll get back to where we were. We got this ready to go. So I'm gonna get in here and I'm gonna just put a really coarse belt on the grinder, and I'm going to knock off a couple of the corners of these here. Got these laid out where I need to be. So I need to take off that corner right there. And this is where I was marking this last one to take off this last little corner right there. And then we'll be ready to go. So like I said, I'm just gonna put a 30 grit belt on the grinder, quickly knock those off, get rid of any burred edge. I'm gonna stay plenty far enough away from the design, and same thing off in this corner back here. I mean, I've got a long way to go, so I'm not gonna get anywhere near the design, and we'll just knock those off, be able to make sure we can bolt this down. All right, now titanium shavings are very flammable. I don't like to grind a lot of titanium. With a really coarse belt, we should get more shavings than sparks, but I will make sure I sweep up my shavings after they cool down and they're done, and make sure I get those thrown away. I've got a bucket of water here, but again, I don't think we're grinding enough that it should be a factor today, but keep that in mind if you're ever grinding titanium, is the little shavings that build up, definitely very flammable. So much for not much in the way of sparks. Even with this coarse belt, it makes lots of sparks. In fact, I think it may be worse. All right, well that's a whole lot more sparks than I was looking for. May have to come up with a better way to knock those corners off of there, but that got us going for now. Let's get these 4 bolted on and get them in the Tormach. So putting all this hardware together the first time to get this first set of 4 bolted on the pallet took a few minutes. Got to put a screw all the way in one end, just
getting all these pieces put in from the back side of the pallet. Took a few extra minutes, but by the time I did the rest of the runs on this, I think I got it down to about 5 or 6 minutes. So 5 or 6 minutes to change over parts on a pallet for a 5.5 hour operation seems like a pretty good trade-off. And again, just really like using the native hardware. It's what I already have on hand to bolt these knives together. So really easy to use this and get these things bolted onto the pallet and get all these contours done. Excited to get this on the Pro Pallet system and in the Tormach.
Ready to go. Back in the Tormach. All right, so a big moment of truth. Let's go ahead and go through this by the numbers this time to try not to have the errors like last time. So last time we missed out on a tool. This time it's only 2 tools. It's tool number 3 and tool number 45. I have both of those loaded. We are still on G59.3, our single point of origin for these pallets. So we're good there. Got our program loaded. It looks like we're making contours on 4 handles, oriented how we've got them on the plate. And this says we're at G59.3, only 2 tools, T3 and T45. We confirmed we have those set up. We have our plate loaded in here. Got our 4 plates on. We're oriented, we're bolted down. Pallet system's locked in place. This program should run smoother. I copied this program from when I was doing these individually on 1 jig plate, and I just made that program a template. I brought it over, and I did change a couple things. Instead of finishing with a 1/8 bull nose, I'm finishing with a 1/4 inch bull nose. I'm trying to see if that'll give me a little bit better finish on the same step over. So other than changing that though, I really left most of the parameters the same and how it's roughing and the adaptive. So hopefully it goes through here and we don't have any issues. Now, when I was doing this before with one on the breakthrough, it stays connected in one little piece, and with the round nose connecting up with where we just machined through from the backside where we put the chamfer on, it doesn't fling any material around. I let it pause on the tool change before I go around and go around the contour, and that piece just pulls off. There's just a little thin tinfoil thickness kind of film holding it in place. So none of those depths, none of that should have changed, but that's my only concern is if it breaks through and it grabs a hold of the leftover piece and tosses that out of the way, that's not going to be ideal. But again, that wasn't happening when I was doing 1. I think that should still be good here as we've got it set up to do 4. So hopefully we have a much better experience with this program than we had with the other one. Let's go ahead and run it and see how she goes. Well, we are off to a promising start here. Seems to be nice and rigid on this pallet. Now it's just going to run for a long time getting these 4 done. That's that adaptive roughing path that it's taken right there. All right, well, I got the first side done, or the first piece of 4 done. So it's going to go ahead and do this roughing step all around all 4 of them, and then it's going to go on to its 2D contour around them. But yeah, I think we got a better program running this time than last time. Hopefully all of these just horrendous mistakes on this little project are behind us, all on the pallet and the fixture plate, and let's try not to make any mistakes on the actual knife handles and the parts here. Looking good so far. One thing I was worried about is in fact what happened. I think in my other program before, I had a tool change in there that switched from that 1/4 inch over to the 1/8, and that's when I got in there to remove the pieces. So you can see this piece over here is just loose. I can probably get these two pieces off of there, but I didn't have a tool change. I didn't have the changeover where I was able to get rid of those. So it went in there and continued roughing. You can see this piece, it broke free, it moved, and it jammed the tool in there. So of course, we toasted that cutter up pretty well, busted the end of that all up. So I need to get a new cutter on there, reset the tool height, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to get in there in some kind of a pause between these operations to stop that from happening. All right, gonna have to think through how to tweak the program to fix that. All right, so I got the pieces removed from there pretty easy. They're really connected up on this backside there. They've got a little piece where they connect. Got those popped off of there. I'm thinking down here on the bottom there's enough clearance. I think it's because it hit this other piece and couldn't just bounce around in there like it used to. So I don't think I'm gonna have a problem down here on these two bottom ones. If that bottom piece comes free, it can just push it out of the way. It's not gonna hit anything or can't get jammed. So I just need to figure out how to get a pause built in there where I am. I know what line of code I'm at, so I can play with that for after. But let's go ahead and get this back in and let's continue running the program. All right, so I gotta say I'm pretty confused. I took a picture of the line of code I was on when the tool broke, and I actually backed up almost 100 lines of code, about 90 lines when I restarted, and it went back over to that top left handle slab, even though the cutter broke on the top right handle slab. It went up there and it basically just kept working on that, and that's where it still was when it went through the line of code where the tool broke. So not sure if I did something wrong on the restart, and then it just did a whole bunch of work, went around, finished that, never went back to that top right, and now it's going down here to rough out the other two. So interesting. I'm going to be curious to see what happens, but it doesn't seem to have done what I would have expected. Never went back to that other piece. So, interesting. We'll see what happens as we continue on in this operation. All right, well, we got the material cleared out of there. I need to come up with a better way to do that, come up with a better way to pause the machine, but we got it cleared. Only broke one tool so far on this whole cycle. I think we should be good. It should be a pretty clear program after this. Make sure I've got the profile set up correctly on those. And only thing I'm still baffled on is we'll see how if it finally goes back and does that top right side piece and finishes up the contours on that. We'll kind of take a look at what all the contours look like before it goes in there and does the finish cut on them. Make sure they're all the same. So far, I think we're going to be smooth sailing for the rest of this. All right, well, it's over there doing the rest of the roughing off of that bottom left. On the bottom right, it definitely went around and took some additional cuts off of there. That one has a different contour on it right now than the top right. So since it's mirrored the pattern, you would think it would do the bottom similar to how it did the top, which means I don't think it's going to go back and pick up that one on the top right. So I'm still just really confused. I've double, triple checked the picture I took where the code stopped, where the tool broke, and versus where I restarted it, and just no idea why it appears to not have started in the right place. We'll see.
All right, well, I guess my confusion wasn't unwarranted because here's the profile I have on 3 of these. You can really see it if you kind of look up at the contour off of the screws back there. It definitely rounds into the top, and then we go back to this one and it's got this definitive step right there. So somehow after I broke the tool, I did not start in the right place. I really want that finish cut to work. So what I'm gonna do is, it's about to change tools. It's gonna come around here and profile these parts. I'm gonna go ahead and let it run the profile on these. I'll set the tool stop again. And then once it goes back to this other tool, before I run the finish cuts around here, I'm gonna go start my program. At the beginning, I'm gonna see if I can find exactly where the program starts after it does the adaptive roughing, and I'm going to try to let it run after the adaptive roughing. It's probably going to run around this part over here as well, but I just want to make sure that that part is machined properly before I do the finish cut. The list of errors continues on this overall video and project, but man, tons of learning. I wish I could understand better where I'm making some of these mistakes. Most of them I figured out. The only parts I guess I haven't figured out is how I got those 2 holes wrong, and now I can't figure out how I started in the wrong place. But we will fix it before we do a finish cut. All right, it's going in there doing a cut around the contours. I think there was a little bit of extra material on that one over there on the top right because it took a little more off of the first pass. This one, it should take a good cut off the second pass and finish the profile on there. There we go. All right, we'll get the profile on all 4 of these done, and then I got to go back and finish the roughing cut on that first top right. All right, I think I found where the adaptive roughing ends and the first contour starts. So hopefully I'm going to start at this contour. That is further back than where I started last time. Last time I started at the line of code 17,005 something. So hopefully this will go finish the contours around this piece. And then once I see it starting the contours on this piece, I can stop and I can pick up where we left off after doing the profiles. Let's see what happens. Okay, well, it's definitely on the right piece. It went in there, it started pretty clean. Not cutting anything at the moment, but this is probably right around where it would have come around and broke the piece. So let's see, hopefully it starts picking up and cutting here. All right, so right there it started picking up and cutting. It's at about line 17,200. I started at 17,500. I got a picture of where I changed my tool, so I'm not sure how I missed it, but I clearly just missed about 500 lines of code. When I hit E-stop, jumped ahead, I bumped something with the mouse. I guess I must have just hit it with the mouse after the E-stop and got it to highlight a different line of code and lost track of where I was, because this is what I was missing. So here's my 500 lines of code that should clean it up, and then we'll be ready to take our finish cuts. Half the mystery solved. We'll cut the rest of it. Just no idea how I got that to happen. All right, we've got it caught up. We're ready for the finish cut. We went in there and we got the rest of that contour off of that one. Actually went back and checked my notes, and it was line 18,755 is where I started last time, so more like 1,500 lines of code that I missed. Not sure how the E-stop, just from breaking a tool, impacted that. Don't have to solve every mystery, I guess, but we were able to fix that, got it caught up. Now we're ready to take the finish cut. So nothing too exciting. I'll get a little bit of the video, but it's just gonna go around in circles, taking the last 10 thou off of everything around those contours. So it's just gonna make hundreds and hundreds of laps to clean that up and finish those. And we'll come back and take a look at it when it is all finished. All right, so now we're back to finish it off. This is where it finished the profiling. So this contours, this is our last set of contours for that finish cut. So I'm just gonna go in there and I'm gonna right click on that line and say start at line, no preparation. And because the next line is an MO1 cycle break and I've got the cycle break on, it's gonna prompt me to hit it again. So right now I need to hit cycle start. And then it's gonna prompt me immediately for another cycle start. and it already has the correct tool in there, so it should kick off after that. And start making contours. All right, we got a couple hours of around the racetrack here. All right, I think we should be on about the last lap here on the first piece. Should be taking, maybe it has one more lap after this. It's being cut fine. And I think I have a plan on how I'm going to keep my excess stock from causing a problem and breaking more cutters. So while those other three are cutting, I'll go jump onto Fusion, go take a look at that, and see if I can't share that with you to wrap up this video once these are done. I guess it's got one more lap in it there. Should jump over to the other piece here pretty soon. You think it's done, but it's got more to go still. All right, I've got a small step over to try to minimize how much cleanup I have to do after it comes off the machine. There it goes. All right, I think we've got a good program. The rest of it should just be a repeat on what it had going on there. So I think I can trust that to run. That was 43 minutes. A little over 43 minutes to finish one of those. So I've got, let's see, an hour and a half, about 2 hours and 15 minutes left. That should give me time to go what I need to do in Fusion, and we'll come see if we can't solve our excess stock problem. Stay tuned. All right, we are nearing the finish line here. Just about have this pallet complete. Should wrap up here in just another lap or two. Don't have a good cycle time on this one. We're sitting at 2 hours and 53 minutes to just for this last finish round for the profiles. But I'll run this again. I'll get a better total cycle time, hopefully when we don't have a tool breakage and a crazy restart, all those other issues we faced on this one. But all in all, even with a little bit of craziness, still looks like we're going to get some good product off of here. Take a look here in just a moment. Well, there we are. Cycle is complete. And I think we're getting a pretty good finish off of there. I do think I'm getting a better finish with that 1/4 inch ball end mill instead of the 1/8 inch that I was finishing these with before. So it's looking pretty nice in there. Got all 4 of those done. And my plan is I went up and I'm going to drill and tap a hole right here in all 4 places. Just drill and tap that 440, and then I'm just going to make part of my initial program when I bolt these on is I'm going to drill a clearance hole in there, and then I'll just put a 440 screw in there that should hold this piece of material in place. So once I punch through, shouldn't have the problem of that moving and wanting to grab on that 1/4 inch end mill and breaking it. So that's what we're going to try next time around. So first off, we're just going to go ahead and drill and tap the plate, and then I'm going to get my next 4 mounted on here, and we will run another cycle, and hopefully it'll run all the way through from start to finish. That's the plan. But success. I know, a little bit of an adventure to get here, but all in all, we're still using the same plate that I started with. We did get product out of it, so even though this has been my craziest, worst CNC project so far to date, even the worst, we're still going to get product out of it at the end, so I guess I can survive and live with that. All right, let's go ahead and get some holes drilled and tapped in here. Let's get our next set going. We'll drill, lock those in place, and we'll make sure that we get a full run cycle time without any issues next time around. That's the goal. All right, let's see if we can do this first try. We get 4 holes drilled and tapped in there, be able to hold that stock in place and keep tools from breaking. All right, this should be super quick. We need tool number 50, which is at the spindle, 55 and 62. There's 62, there's 55 over there. So 3 tools, gonna take a minute and a half just to go in there and drill and tap these 2 holes.
I'm on G59.3. Got my file loaded in there, just drill and tap 440 holes in the plate. So got our plate back in there. All right, minute and a half, let's knock it out. All right, well, that was it. Now we got 4 little holes in there to screw to. I'm just gonna touch those up with a hand tap. We'll get our next set of 4 bolted on here, run a cycle. All right, well, we've got a little screw in there this time. Should hold that extra stock, keep that from being able to flex and move around when we come around there and before it disconnects. Still got the tool brake on, so before it goes around and does the contours, just take that out, snap those pieces off like we did before, and then let it finish its work. Hopefully this saves breaking another cutter today.
All right, well, it seems to be in those problem spots now. That material is barely connected. This is where it's going to have trouble. Piece is vibrating. It seems to be okay. I think it held up in there. So now I think it's moving on to its upper level. I maybe could have paused in there and gone in there and gotten those pieces out of the way, but I wanted to see if it would run a full cycle, because it kind of broke through them a little bit ago, so we'll see if it'll continue on. I might have to just go in there and manually pause and get those pieces out of there after I know it's broken through. I don't know where that is in the code, but I wanted to see if I can have a true walk-away program and if it would just complete without actually breaking. See what happens. So far it's looking good though. Definitely the bolts made a big difference in clamping down that stock. All right, well, it was successful. It finished those top 2. It made it all the way through. It's moved on to the bottom 2. I'm not gonna lie, it gets a little rattly when it gets in there. Even with that bolt on there, it's still, those pieces are a little loose. I'm definitely gonna check the cutter and see if it chipped it at all before I go into the finish cut. I think I'm still better off doing a manual pause to remove those pieces sooner rather than later, but at least I now know that I've got a walk-away program. If I do walk away, it shouldn't crash and just totally shatter the cutter, but we'll check it out and see if it's got any chips in it before we run our finish cut. All right, so even though I proved that I could go through and finish this on the top side, like I say, it does a lot of rattling once it gets in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of these pieces of material right now. I just went ahead and did a feed hold, and then I stopped my program. Last time I just did the feed hold, and then you can do a cycle start and pick right up where you left off. When you hit stop, it does apparently reset the G code, so I will have to do a start from where I am to re-kick off my program. So hopefully I don't have an issue like I did yesterday. Don't stop programs a lot, so always a learning process when I do. But I think this will be my best bet to save that cutter as much as possible. And there we go, we got all those pieces off of there, no problem. Let's see if we can get a nice clean restart. And that worked. I did a start with no preparation. Seemed to go no problem. So I think that's my best solution. As long as I'm here, I'm in the shop, I can take a quick pause, get in there, get those pieces of material out of there before they have to rattle around and do any damage to that cutter. I'll still check this one out before my finish cut. I think we're in good shape. All right, we made it to the tool change. We still have the same tool in there. I'm just gonna pop that out real quick, look at it under the magnifier, see what kind of shape it's in, and then we'll decide if we're gonna use that again for our finish cut. Otherwise, I'll do a quick swap out on the tool right now. Here's a picture of that 1/4" ball nose end mill. I see one little chip in one of the flutes. Looks pretty small. I got 3 flutes that are perfectly good, so I'm gonna let it ride. I'm still seeing a pretty decent finish on the part with it, so I think it's gonna be fine for a finish cut. Meanwhile, while that has been running over there all morning, this is what's nice about pallets and having longer cycle times. I'm over here on the manual mill at the same time, and I'm working on cutting out these blade blanks, working on the profile. So taking my 3 different cuts on there.
After this pallet is done, I'm going to do a quick swap so that I can cut the little finger notches in here. And again, I normally wouldn't do that, but with this pallet, I can just pop one off, put the vise back on, do a quick probe setup, and then go back and put this other pallet, load the program, and be off and running again. So I'll have to do a quick probe for this part, but I don't have to reset anything up to be able to go back in there to do the next pallet worth of contours again. So saves a lot of time and just some of the versatility you get by having that pallet system and what you can do in the shop with all that free time while pallets are running. Loving it.
Well, this is out of order, but seemed like a good place to drop in this picture, so did what I planned to. In between those pallet runs, I went ahead and dropped the vise on there, quickly ran this program. It only takes about 3 or 4 minutes to cut all those grooves, pulled the vise back off, put the pallet back on, and then went on with batch number 3 of the contours. But let's go ahead and see how batch number 2 finished up. Well, there we are. The second set is finished, complete. Since I interrupted that cycle to stop it and remove those pieces, I still didn't get a true full cycle time, but I'm at about 3 hours and 40 minutes now. I think I was a little over an hour, so that 5.5 I think is pretty much accurate what I was getting up there. The little nick out of the tool doesn't seem to have impacted my surface finish at all, so definitely getting pretty good tool life out of these 1/4 inch ball end mills. No reason to believe I can't get another set done. So all right, I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to do one little operation, cut those notches out of the blade, and then I'm going to put this pallet back on here and let this machine run for, got about 5 more cycles to get through, 4 more cycles to get through, 4 more cycles to get through to get all these done. So take me another couple of days to get that all wrapped up. So this is a good time, I think, to wrap up this video though. Well, I just want to show that we are clearly wrapping up this video on success, even after a little bit of a rough start. There's all our leftover bits. It's been a week. I've gotten really good at stopping and starting this program, transition everything onto the pallets, and you know, it's a long program, so I couldn't always run the whole thing in the evenings when I came home. Sometimes I could just run half of it, come back out, do a finish cut. So I got really good at doing that, and we have all 24 of these pieces are done, and I never did break another end mill. I finally went through and I was using the same end mill to rough, and then I finally, about halfway through, I started changing over and I put on a different 1/4 inch ball nose to do the finish cycle pass that took 3 hours. So it was pretty quick. Just a lot of times I was doing that pass the next day, so it made it pretty easy to get in there and set up a new one to do the finish pass. But there we go. Started out a little rough, but we got success here in the end. Well, YouTube, that is a wrap on another project here in the BladesIIB shop. A ton of learning in this one. Lots of mistakes were made. We got a crash on the CNC, just some rushing through programming and seeing what the results of that are. So very humbling experience for me, but again, I think just a good learning. It's kind of at that point in my CNC journey where I needed to really make sure I'm reminded of how important it is to take my time. So I got a lot of that out of this learning journey on this video, and eventually we did make some successful parts, which that's always the goal in here as well. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed learning along with me. This is going to be the last in the Pierson Pro Pallet series. I'm sure you're going to see these pallets on some future videos, but I don't plan on making any more videos on the whole pallet process. I think I've shown you everything on sort of what I plan to use them for and how I plan to use them. So I hope you got as much out of it as I did. This pallet system definitely has lived up to everything that I was hoping for and more, and significantly increased my productivity. I think I'm going to be able to get a lot more product out, a lot more knives done. And not only that, but it just gives me time to do other things in the shop, which is really what I need. I'm a one-man show. If I can double time some work, that really helps me out significantly. If you're new to the BladesIIB channel, this is the first video you found, I encourage you to get out there, check out some of the other videos on the channel on machining, welding, fusion, knife making, just everything going on here in the BladesIIB shop. If you like what you see, would love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and support the channel as we continue to grow here in 2022. And if you like this video, drop a like, drop a comment, would love to hear from you. For those of you subscribed to the channel already, I sure appreciate the support as you continue to watch these videos. Would love a comment, would love to hear from you as well. So now that we're finished with these Pierson Pro pallets, this weekend I've got a pretty fun project to work on. If you scroll way back in my channel about a year ago, I made some custom hubs for a gentleman who wanted to put some Camaro wheels on his, I think it's an 85 Chevy Silverado, and now he's got the wheels on there. He wants to change out the whole front end,
and he wants to put the Bembro brakes, everything from the Camaro front end onto there. So we're going to make a bracket that allows him to mount that brake caliper on there in conjunction with these hubs. So he's designed that. We're going to go through and cut that on the Tormach as well. We'll go put the cam in fusion, and then we'll be down there cutting that this weekend. Going to make one, sample one out of aluminum, and then eventually cut the other two out of some heat-treated 4140, the same material we used to make those hubs. So that should be a good project, keep us busy this weekend. After that, I plan to do a shop tour. I've had a couple people ask about doing a full shop tour, and then I will continue getting ready for this Blade show in Atlanta, June 3rd through the 5th. Hey, if you're anywhere near the Atlanta area, would love it if you'd come stop by the table 21W at the Blade show in Atlanta. Hey, if I don't see you there, I hope it's because you're in your own shop, working on some projects of your own, making some chips of your own. I'll be working on the next video here in the BladesIIB shop, and until I get that one out, y'all take care.